welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to do my October wrap up. This is actually part 2. The first part was me talking about everything that I read by one particular author in the month of October, and I will leave that in the card up above. Otherwise, let's get started. The first thing that I read in the month of October was actually something that I had started in September, and that was Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? This was actually the perfect nonfiction book to transition me into the spooky season, especially since this is about children's creepy questions that they've asked a funeral director and her answers, and the title question definitely was covered. I ended up giving this collection 4 stars. There were certain questions that I felt were a little drawn out and could have been a little shortened, but I did absolutely love the little illustrations found within this book. Next, I read The Year We Fell Down by Serena Bowen. This is a college hockey romance about a boy and a girl who meet at the college infirmary, and I ended up giving this one a 3 stars. It's pretty ableist at times, and the romance was pretty hard to root for in the beginning, but overall it was a pretty interesting story to read about because most of my hockey romances that I currently read are set in the adult world. Next, I read A Werewolf in Manhattan, which is about a werewolf who has like all the power and wealth, and he is tasked with watching this author who has been writing very, very big truths about werewolves and trying to figure out her source and their budding romance. I ended up giving this book 2 stars because the love interest was absolutely unbearable. I loved the premise of this book, and I just wish it wasn't like a cat and mouse of him trying to will we, they won't, they will, they won't, they of every other page. Next, I read Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. I received an e-arc of this through NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. This is about a teen who has HIV, and she is trying to branch out and, you know, do more things and maybe even have sex in the future. And I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It is a wonderful examination of like the teenage experience while also being very, you know, open about, you know, the topic it's talking about. I felt the author was very capable of making an emotionally impactful story about a teen with HIV as well as a standard high school story. Next, I read American Predator, which is a nonfiction book about the hunt for a very meticulous serial killer. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I felt that this book did a good job of telling a nonfiction story while also keeping it entertaining. It does focus a lot on the last victim and their family. Next, I read Michigan versus the Boys, which I received an e-arc of through NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. This is about Michigan, who is determined to join the boys hockey team after her team gets cut and the toxic masculinity that she kind of has to confront. I ended up giving this book a full 5 stars. I originally was considering giving it a 4, and I ended up sitting on this book and it was a 5-star read for me. It touches a very difficult topic and it goes places, but it's a very worthwhile read. And next, I read The Great Shear, which I received an e-arc of through NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. It is kind of pitched as a creepy YA Handmaid's Tale, and this book is extremely creepy. However, I felt that there was pacing issues with this one, and there were no chapter breaks, which definitely hurt the flow for this one for me, so I ended up giving this one a 3 star. Next, I read Moon Called, which is the first book in the Mercy Thompson series by Patricia Briggs. This is a shifter series about a walker who can shift into a coyote at will, and I was hopeful that this was going to be a new shifter series that I was going to fall in love with, especially since there were 12 books out and they were still coming out, and I ended up giving this one a 2 star. I felt that the characters and the writing was kind of boring and they were flat. I know this first book came out in like 2006, but I was expecting a little more than what I got. There were some instances in this story that I was enjoying. However, overall, I kind of felt just bored by it. Next, I read Resurrection Girls, which I received an e-arc of through Deweys in exchange for an honest review. I ended up giving this book 2 stars. About a girl whose life hasn't been the same since her little brother drowned, and a new girl moves into town near her, and she's drawn to the women nearby. And the story has surprise magical fabulism in it. This story is a roller coaster in terms of what is going on in it, which is why I gave it a 2 star. Next, I read Savage Appetites, which is about 4 true stories of women, crime, and obsession. And it is the author talking about how there are 4 archetypes linking people to their obsession with, you know, true crime. And it was an interesting read, but I ended up giving this book 2 stars. It unfortunately follows 2 different things that I did not like. One of which was the format. It basically is 4 different really long chunks talking about the same thing for like a very long period of time. Any kind of break up and or interconnection between the parts. So it felt like 4 essays kind of shoved together. However, my biggest gripe with this specific work is the author overly puts her own opinion in what she's writing in regards to these specific women and these specific archetypes, which was very odd, especially since she said that she was no longer, you know, a true crime person. So it felt like she now felt that she was above this whole world kind of deal, and I overall didn't appreciate it as someone who does, you know, sometimes, you know, read a true crime book, obviously. Next, I read The Whisper Man, which is about a father who moves to his hometown and ends up getting caught in the crossfire with a thought to be gone serial killer, and I ended up giving this book 3 stars. It ends up doing the detective thing in a boring way, and it's high-key very anticlimactic, and I was overall high-key disappointed because I was hearing really great buzz about this one. Next, I reread Welcome to Lovecraft Volume 1. This I reread for my graphic novel book club. I know that it improves in later volumes, but it just seems very clunky in both the writing and the art in the first volume. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It is about a family who ends up kind of inheriting a house that seems very Lovecraftian. Next, I read Tunnel of Bones by Victoria Schwa. This is book 2 in the Cassidy Blake. I think it's going to be a trilogy. And this I ended up giving 4 stars. I overall liked book 1 a little bit more than book 2. I just felt that the story and the stakes were just a little bit higher in book 1. However, book 2 definitely is just as creepy as book 1. Liking what we're learning, and I can't wait for the next one. Next, I read Carmilla, which is the supposedly first vampire book ever. I ended up giving this 3 stars. We've seen it done so many times where reading the original or seeing the original just kind of doesn't have the same feeling. If I hadn't read or seen so many vampire things, this might be like something astounding. But overall, I ended up giving it 3 stars, and I appreciate what it's done. Next, I read Empty Graves, which is book 5 in the Lockwood & Company series, which ends up being the conclusion for the Lockwood & Company series. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. My partner gave this one 5 stars. We were sad that the series was over, but we both agreed that it was over in a way where it could be open-ended in case the author decides to add more books in the future, which we're hoping for one more just to, you know, give us a little more, because we really loved this series and this world. It is about a world where ghosts exist, and children are the ones who can actually see them. Next, I read The Last of August, which is the 2nd book in the Sherlock Holmes series. I ended up giving this one a 3 stars. I enjoyed it, but I did not enjoy it as much as the first book in this series. However, I do plan on continuing on with this series. I just didn't enjoy the mystery as much as the one in the first one. And because mysteries are so important for my ratings for stuff like that, it brought my rating down to a 3. But I do really enjoy these characters specifically, so I definitely will be continuing on because I'm really enjoying Jamie and Charlotte. Next, I read The Escape Room, and honestly, I've kind of forgotten what this one was about, except for it was about an escape room, and what I really thought of it, except for thinking it was kind of boring because I thought it was boring and most of it's kind of gone out of my head. I gave it a 2. Next, I read Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. I received an e-arc of this through NetGalley in exchange for an honest review, and I gave this a 3 stars. This is a love story about a couple who got together when they were younger and ended up having a break because of one of them betraying the other and getting back together when they're older. And it also involves Hollywood. And I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I enjoyed the first chunk of the novel more than the second chunk. Enjoyed reading it. So I ended up giving it a 3 star. I know this one's very polarizing and I'm just dead smack in the middle. Next, I read Rebecca, which is a classical thriller, and I don't want to say too much about it because I went into this one absolutely blind and I was absolutely thrilled with this one. And if you haven't read Rebecca, just go into it blind. That's all I can say, is just go into it blind. I gave this one 4 stars. It was a great time. Next, a couple of things that I read were for Deweys 24-hour readathon. I won't be talking about the ones that were by that author that I've already talked about, but otherwise I will be leaving my Deweys up in the card above, and I'll just be running through and telling you what I read and what I rated them. The Truth About Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, I rated this one 3 stars. I read Snatched, which is 5.5 in the Will Trent series by Karen Slaughter, and I gave this one 5 stars. I read Busted, which is 6.5 in the Will Trent series by Karen Slaughter, and I gave this one 3 stars. I read Bloodbound, which is the first in the Bloodbound saga by Helen Hardent, and I gave this one 2 stars. I read Halloween Boo, and I gave this one 3 stars. I read Welcome to the Dead House. I gave this one 3 stars. I read The Abduction. I gave this one 2 stars. I read Stay Out of the Basement. I gave this one 3 stars. And that was everything that I ended up reading in the month of October. What about you? What did you read in October? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like what you saw here today, be sure to like and subscribe. I normally post videos on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Thank you so much for watching and have a nice day.